Jake Morrison walked through the shining corridors of Kepler Station, his footsteps echoing against the metal walls. The space station was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. It floated in the darkness between stars, home to the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Jake was the first human to walk these halls as an equal, or at least that was what he hoped. The alien beings he passed barely looked at him. Some were tall and thin like ghosts, with skin that seemed to glow. Others were covered in thick armor and walked with heavy steps. A few looked almost human, but their eyes held an ancient wisdom that made Jake feel young and small. These were the members of the Galactic Council, rulers of civilizations that had traveled the stars for thousands of years. Jake had been on Kepler Station for 3 years now. 3 long years of trying to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Earth wanted to join the Galactic Council, to trade with other worlds and learn from alien science, but most of the council members saw humans as children playing with dangerous toys. He reached the great assembly hall and stopped to check his appearance in a mirror. His suit was perfect, his tie straight, his dark hair combed back. Jake looked like what he was, a career diplomat who had spent his whole life learning how to talk to powerful people. But today felt different. Today might be the day that changed everything for humanity. The assembly hall was enormous. The ceiling stretched, so high that clouds could form inside. Thousands of seats filled the space, each one designed for a different alien species. Some seats were filled with water for creatures that breathed liquid. Others glowed with heat for beings that came from worlds near their suns. The technology was amazing, but Jake had learned not to stare. The aliens found human wonder annoying. Ambassador Morrison, a cold voice spoke behind him. Jake turned to see Overlord Thex approaching. The Corvin was huge, nearly 8 feet tall, with gray skin like stone and eyes that burned red. His people controlled the largest military in the galaxy. They had never lost a war. Overlord Thex, Jake replied with a polite nod. I hope you're well. Thex made a sound that might have been laughter, but it sounded more like rocks grinding together. Still trying to be civilized, human? Your species amuses me. Jake kept his face calm. He had dealt with Thex many times before. The Corvin leader hated humans and made no secret of it. I believe civilization is something we all strive for. Civilization? Thex stepped closer, his massive form casting a shadow over Jake. Your people were killing each other with sticks and stones when my ancestors were building starships. You think a few hundred years of technology makes you our equals? Other aliens began to notice the conversation. Jake could feel their eyes on him, waiting to see how the human would respond to the insult. This was always the test. Would he lose his temper? Would he prove that humans were still the savage beasts the galaxy believed them to be? Every species has its own path to the stars, Jake said calmly. Humanity may be young, but we have much to offer. Thex laughed again, louder, this time. What could you possibly offer us? Your primitive weapons? Your short lives? Your violent history? The Corvin leaned down until his burning eyes were level with Jake's. The only thing humans are good for is manual labor. You should be grateful we allow you to mine asteroids, for us. Jake felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. This was exactly what Thex wanted, to make him lose control in front of the entire council. I believe today's discussion about mining rights will show that humanity is ready for a greater role in galactic affairs. Mining rights. Thex shook his massive head. You want to dig rocks in the outer rim, where real species won't waste their time. Even then, you ask for too much. The session began with the sound of a great bell. Thousands of aliens took their seats as the council speaker, an ancient being that looked like a tree made of silver, called for order. Jake walked to the small section reserved for humanity. Just 5 seats in an arena designed for thousands. It was a reminder of how little his species mattered here. For the next 6 hours, Jake presented humanity's case. He showed holographic displays of human achievements, the cities they had built, the art they had created, the problems they had solved. He talked about human science, human medicine, human engineering. He spoke about their desire for peace and their dream of exploring the galaxy alongside other civilizations. The aliens listened with polite boredom. A few asked questions, but Jake could tell they had already made up their minds. When Overlord Thek stood to respond, the hall grew quiet. The humans speak of achievements, Thek began, his voice carrying easily through the vast space. But what are these achievements? Buildings that will crumble in a few centuries? Art that means nothing? To civilized minds? Medicine that barely extends their already short lives? He turned to look directly at Jake. Humans are a violent species. They have spent their entire history killing each other. They have poisoned their own world and nearly destroyed themselves with their weapons. Now they want to bring this violence to the galaxy. Jake stood up. With respect, Overlord Thek, humanity has learned from its mistakes. We have united our world and ended war among our people. We seek only to trade and learn. United? Thek laughed. For how long? A few decades. My people have known peace for 10,000 years. The Zephyrians have maintained their civilization for 20,000. You humans will be fighting each other again before this council's next meeting. The insults continued for another hour. Other species joined in, questioning human intelligence, human culture, human worth. Jake answered each attack with patience and facts, but he could see he was losing. The council had no intention of accepting humanity as an equal partner. When the session finally ended, Jake felt exhausted. He had given everything he had, and it wasn't enough. As he gathered his papers, a young Zephyrian approached him. Her skin glowed with a soft blue light, and her voice sounded like music. Ambassador Morrison, she said quietly. Not all of us agree with Overlord Thek. Some of us believe humanity deserves a chance. Jake smiled for the first time that day. Thank you. That gives me hope. That evening, Jake sat in his small quarters and recorded a message for his family back on Earth. He looked tired but determined as he spoke to the camera. Lisa, honey, I know you're watching this. Daddy's still working hard to make sure humans can travel to the stars. It's difficult, but I believe we'll succeed. Tell your mother I love her and that I'm doing everything I can to build a better future for your generation. He ended the recording and prepared for bed. Tomorrow would bring another day of negotiations, another chance to prove humanity's worth. Jake Morrison fell asleep believing that patience and diplomacy would eventually win the day. He never woke up. Dr. Elena Rodriguez found Jake Morrison's body at 7 in the morning. She had come to check on the human ambassador after he missed his breakfast meeting with the trade delegation from the Centauri worlds. When her knocks went unanswered, she used her medical override to enter his quarters. Jake lay peacefully in his bed, as if he had simply died in his sleep. Elena had seen many deaths during her 20 years as a doctor, and this looked natural. But something felt wrong. Jake was only 45 years old and had passed his medical exam just 2 weeks earlier. Healthy humans didn't just die in their sleep. Elena immediately called for a medical team and began examining the body. Jake's face was calm, his muscles relaxed. There were no signs of struggle, no wounds, no obvious cause of death. But Elena was one of the best doctors in the galaxy, and she knew that appearances could lie. The autopsy took 6 hours. Elena worked carefully, checking every organ, every tissue, every drop of blood. At first, everything looked normal. Jake's heart was strong, his brain showed no damage, his lungs were clear. Then Elena found it, tiny traces of a rare neurotoxin in his nervous system. The poison was called silent death by those who knew about it. It was created by a species that had gone extinct long ago, but the formula still existed in certain databases. The toxin killed slowly and left almost no trace. It was designed to look like natural death. Only the most advanced medical equipment could detect it, and only if the doctor knew what to look for. Elena stared at the test results with growing horror. Jake Morrison had been murdered. Someone had poisoned the human ambassador and made it look like an accident. But who? And why? She immediately tried to contact the Council security forces, but was told they were investigating other matters. She requested a meeting with the Council speaker, but was informed that the speaker was unavailable. Elena began to understand that someone very powerful wanted Jake's death to remain a secret. Meanwhile, Captain Ryan Brooks received the news aboard his ship, the New Horizon. Ryan had been Jake's friend for over 10 years, and the two men had worked together to prepare for humanity's entry into galactic politics. When the message came through that Jake was dead, Ryan felt like someone had hit him in the chest with a hammer. Natural causes, the official report said. But Ryan knew Jake better than anyone. The man was in perfect health and had everything to live for. His wife Carol was waiting for him on Earth, and his daughter Lisa was about to graduate from college. Jake would never have given up on his mission when he was so close to success. Ryan immediately sent an encrypted message to Earth. The communication would take 3 days to reach home, but he marked it with the highest priority codes. Earth needed to know that their ambassador was dead, and they needed to know that something was very wrong on Kepler Station. 3 days later, the message reached Earth Defense Command in Colorado. General Peter Hayes read the report twice before calling an emergency meeting with the president. Within hours, leaders from every nation on Earth gathered in the secure bunker beneath the White House. President Maria Santos stood before the cameras with tears in her eyes. Behind her stood Carol Morrison and her daughter Lisa. The entire world watched as their leader spoke about the man who had represented all of humanity among the stars. Jake Morrison was more than our ambassador, President Santos said. He was our hope. He believed that humanity could earn its place in the galaxy through peaceful means. He worked tirelessly for 3 years to show the universe that we are ready to join the community of civilized worlds. Carol Morrison stepped forward to speak. Her voice was strong despite her grief. My husband believed in the goodness of all intelligent beings. He thought that if we showed respect and patience, we would be accepted. Jake died believing that diplomacy could solve any problem. Lisa Morrison, just 22 years old, spoke last. My father taught me that words are more powerful than weapons. He said that a good diplomat could prevent any war. I want to continue his work and honor his memory by serving humanity among the stars. The public ceremony was beautiful and moving. World leaders spoke about Jake's sacrifice and humanity's commitment to peace. But in the secret bunkers beneath major cities, a very different conversation was taking place. Admiral Kate Walsh gathered her senior officers in a room that didn't officially exist. The walls were lined with lead to prevent any signals from entering or leaving. What they discussed would never appear in any record. Gentlemen and ladies, Admiral Walsh began, we have tried the diplomatic approach. We sent our best man to represent humanity, and they killed him. The question now is simple. Do we accept this insult, or do we show the galaxy who they're really dealing with? General Hayes activated a holographic display that showed star charts, ship locations, and military installations. For 50 years we have been preparing for the possibility that the galaxy would not welcome us peacefully. While Jake Morrison was trying to earn us a seat at their table, we were building weapons they've never seen before. The room fell silent as the true scope of humanity's military preparation became clear. Hidden shipyards and asteroid belts, weapons testing facilities in empty star systems, training grounds on distant moons. Earth had been building an army in secret just in case diplomacy failed. How many ships do we have? Asked Admiral Walsh. 300 combat vessels fully crewed and ready for deployment, replied General Hayes. Another 500 support ships, 2 million trained soldiers, and weapons that are specifically designed to counter every known alien defense system. Admiral Walsh nodded grimly. And how long before we can begin operations? The fleets are already moving into position. We can strike within 90 days. In the months following Jake's death, the galaxy began to notice changes in human behavior. Ships that had been carrying trade goods suddenly changed course and disappeared into deep space. Human colonies that had been open and friendly began restricting access. Communication with Earth became formal and cold. The Galactic Council barely noticed these changes. To them, humans were grieving the loss of their ambassador and would probably withdraw from galactic politics entirely. This was actually what most council members wanted. Humans had been an annoying distraction from more important matters. Overlord Thex was particularly pleased. The troublesome human diplomat was gone, and his species seemed to be retreating back to their own small corner of the galaxy. The Corvan military could now focus on more important concerns, like expanding their territory and suppressing rebellions in their outer colonies. But some beings were more observant. Dr. Elena Rodriguez continued her investigation despite official pressure to drop the matter. She had found evidence that the neurotoxin used to kill Jake Morrison came from Corvan military stockpiles. When she tried to present this evidence to the council, her report mysteriously disappeared from the computer systems. Elena began to fear for her own safety. She had uncovered proof of a political assassination, and the killers were powerful enough to cover up their crime. She decided to send her findings to the only beings who might care enough to act on them: the humans themselves. Her encrypted message reached Earth just as Admiral Walsh was finalizing the attack plans. The proof of Corvan involvement in Jake's murder was exactly what humanity needed to justify what came next. The galaxy had killed their ambassador and thought they could cover it up. They were about to learn that humans did not forgive such insults. Jake Morrison had believed in peace. He had thought that patience and diplomacy could overcome any obstacle. His death proved that the galaxy was not ready for such noble ideals. Now his daughter Lisa was training to be a soldier, and his wife Carol was working in a weapons factory. The man who had dedicated his life to preventing war had become the reason for the greatest conflict the galaxy had ever seen. In the darkness between stars, human war fleets gathered like hunting wolves. The time for talking was over. 3 months after Jake Morrison's death, humanity began the largest military operation in its history. While the Galactic Council continued their normal business, thinking the humans had retreated in grief, Earth was transforming into a war machine unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Commander Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the battleship Vengeance, hidden in an asteroid field 30 light-years from Earth. Around him, dozens of massive warships waited in the darkness. These vessels had been built in secret over the past 20 years, disguised as mining operations and research stations. The galaxy thought humans only had a few exploration ships. They were wrong. "Status report," Alex commanded. "All ships are ready for combat, sir," replied his weapons officer, Lieutenant Jane Carter. "The new kinetic cannons are loaded and calibrated. Stealth systems are operating at full capacity. We are invisible to all known alien sensor systems." Alex nodded with satisfaction. The human fleet had been designed specifically to fight alien technology. While other species relied on energy weapons and force fields, humans had chosen a different path. Their weapons were based on simple physics, accelerating pieces of metal to incredible speeds. No energy shield in the galaxy could stop a chunk of tungsten traveling at half the speed of light. On Earth, President Santos met with her military commanders in the deepest bunker beneath the Pentagon. The room was filled with holographic displays showing military preparations across human space. Every colony, every space station, every mining facility was being converted for war production. "Report on Operation Starfall," the president commanded. General Hayes stepped forward with a tablet full of data. "All phases are proceeding on schedule. Industrial production has increased by 400%. Every human world is now manufacturing weapons, ammunition, and ship components. We estimate that we can support a full-scale war for 5 years without slowing down." Admiral Walsh added her own report. "The fleet is ready. 300 combat ships, each one designed to destroy alien vessels twice their size. Our pilots have been training in secret for years using captured alien technology. They know the weaknesses of every major species in the galaxy, but the most important part of humanity's preparation was happening in laboratories around Earth. Dr. Nathan Cross led a team of scientists who had spent decades studying alien technology, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited in warfare. "The aliens have become too dependent on their advanced technology," Dr. Cross explained to the military leadership. "Their shields can stop energy weapons, but they've never faced pure kinetic force. Their computer systems are incredibly sophisticated, but they're vulnerable to simple electromagnetic pulses. Their soldiers are trained to fight with energy weapons at long range, but they've forgotten how to fight hand-to-hand combat." Dr. Cross activated a holographic display, showing human military equipment. Our weapons are crude by galactic standards, but that's exactly why they'll work. The aliens have no defense against bullets, no protection against explosives, no answer to chemical weapons. They've spent so long fighting each other with clean, civilized technology that they've forgotten how brutal warfare can be. The humans had also made an important discovery about alien psychology. Most galactic species had been peaceful for so long that they had lost the ability to think like warriors. They fought according to ancient rules and traditions, always giving their enemies time to surrender, always warning before attacking. Humans had no such limitations. Captain Lisa Morrison, Jake's daughter, was training with the Special Forces, unit that would lead the first attack. She had left college to join the military, driven by anger over her father's murder and determination to make the galaxy pay for its crime. Remember, her instructor, Sergeant Mike Davis, told the soldiers, "The aliens think we're primitives. They expect us to fight like savages with crude weapons. They're right about the crude weapons part, but they don't understand what that means. While they're trying to adjust their shields and targeting systems, we'll be putting bullets through their heads." Lisa practiced with the new human battle armor. It was heavy and ugly compared to alien equipment, but it could stop any known energy weapon and was completely invisible to alien sensors. More importantly, it was powered by simple batteries instead of the complex energy systems that aliens used. When the electromagnetic pulse weapons hit, human soldiers would still be fighting while alien equipment shut down. The training was brutal. Human soldiers learned to fight in zero gravity, in toxic atmospheres, in the dark, and in conditions that would kill most alien species. They practiced boarding actions, sabotage missions, and assassination techniques. The galaxy had taught humanity that diplomacy was weakness. Now they would learn what human strength really looked like. Meanwhile, other teams were preparing for psychological warfare. Humans had studied every major alien species and identified their fears and weaknesses. The proud Corvins were terrified of being seen as weak. The spiritual Zephyrians could not handle having their beliefs challenged. The logical Centaurians became paralyzed when faced with truly irrational behavior. "We're not just going to defeat them militarily," explained Colonel Amy Foster, head of psychological operations. "We're going to break their spirits. When we're done, they'll be afraid to leave their home systems. They'll spend the rest of their lives wondering when the humans will come back." But perhaps the most important part of the preparation was information warfare. Human computer specialists had been quietly infiltrating alien networks for years, learning their secrets and preparing to turn their own technology against them. Every alien ship, every space station, every planetary defense system is connected to the Galactic Communication Network, explained Dr. Rachel Stone, head of cyber warfare. "We've planted viruses and logic bombs throughout their systems. When the attack begins, we can shut down their defenses, crash their ships, and turn their own weapons against them." The final piece of the puzzle was intelligence gathering. Human spies, disguised as traders and diplomats, had been mapping alien military installations and identifying key targets. They knew where every alien leader lived, where their weapons were stored, and how to cripple their war-making capacity. Captain Morrison received her final briefing before departing for the front lines. Her target was Kepler Station itself, the symbol of alien power and the place where her father had been murdered. "Your mission is simple," Admiral Walsh told her. "Capture the Galactic Council alive. We want them to face trial for their crimes. But if they resist..." The Admiral's expression grew cold. "Show them the same mercy they showed your father." Lisa nodded grimly. She had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in the war because she wanted to personally arrest the beings who had allowed her father's killer to go free. The little girl who had once believed in peace and diplomacy was gone, replaced by a soldier who understood that some enemies could only be defeated through violence. As the human fleets moved into their final positions, the galaxy continued its normal routine. Alien merchants traded goods between worlds. Politicians made speeches about peace and prosperity. Military commanders worried about small border disputes and minor rebellions. None of them realized that humanity had been watching, learning, and preparing for this moment for decades. They had dismissed humans as young and primitive, useful only for manual labor. They were about to discover that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate. The galaxy had made two critical mistakes. First, they had murdered humanity's ambassador and thought they could cover up the crime. Second, they had assumed that humans would accept this insult and retreat quietly back to their own worlds. In 72 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when humans decided that talking was over and it was time to fight. The beings who had ruled the stars for thousands of years were about to face a species that had spent its entire history perfecting the art of war. Jake Morrison had died believing in the power of words. His daughter was about to show the galaxy the power of actions. The attack began at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Across 7 star systems, human warships emerged from the darkness like sharks rising from deep water. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the galaxy was at war. Admiral Kate Walsh commanded the largest human fleet from her flagship, the destroyer Earth's Fury. Her target was Corvin Prime, the homeworld of the species that had murdered Jake Morrison. As her ships dropped out of hyperspace above the heavily defended planet, she broadcast a message that would be remembered for centuries. "This is Admiral Walsh of the Human Defense Force. 3 months ago, you murdered our ambassador. You thought we would accept this crime in silence. You were wrong. Today, humanity shows you the price of treachery." The Corvin defenders were caught completely by surprise. Their massive orbital defense platforms had been designed to fight other alien fleets using energy weapons and force fields. They had never faced anything like the human kinetic cannons that now open fire on them. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds, tore through Corvin shields as if they were paper. Defense stations that had protected the planet for centuries exploded in seconds. The proud Corvin fleet, which had never lost a battle, found themselves helpless against weapons they didn't understand. Captain Ryan Brooks, Jake's old friend, led the attack on the Corvin Military Command Center. His ship, the New Horizon, had been disguised as a peaceful exploration vessel for years. Now its hidden weapons turned the center of Corvin power into a burning ruin. "For Jake Morrison," Ryan whispered as he watched the enemy's most important building collapse in flames. Meanwhile, at Kepler Station, Captain Lisa Morrison led a team of human special forces through corridors she had walked with her father years before. The station's security systems had been designed to stop conventional alien weapons. They were useless against human soldiers carrying simple firearms and explosive charges. Lisa's team moved through the station like a storm of destruction. Alien guards who had never faced kinetic weapons fell before they could react. Security. Doors that could stop energy blasts were blown apart by human explosives. Within 2 hours, Lisa and her soldiers had reached the council chambers. The great assembly hall where her father had tried so hard to earn respect for humanity was now filled with terrified alien leaders. The same beings who had sat in judgment of human civilization now cowered behind their desks as armed humans surrounded them. "Greetings, counselors," Lisa said, her voice cold as space. "I am Captain Morrison, daughter of Ambassador Jake Morrison, the man you allowed to be murdered in these very halls." Overlord Thex, the Corvin leader who had insulted her father, tried to maintain his dignity even with a human rifle pointed at his chest. "You cannot do this. We are protected by galactic law. We are diplomats." Lisa laughed, and the sound was harsh and bitter. "Diplomats? Like my father was a diplomat? Did galactic law protect him when your people poisoned him in his sleep?" She activated a recording device and began broadcasting to the entire galaxy. "Citizens of all worlds, you are witnessing the arrest of the Galactic Council for the murder of Ambassador Jake Morrison. For too long, these beings have ruled through fear and deception. Today, their reign ends." The capture of the council was broadcast live across every communication network in the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as the most powerful figures in galactic politics were arrested by humans they had considered primitive savages. At the same time, Commander Alex Turner was leading the assault on Zephyrian space. The Zephyrians had always considered themselves the most advanced species in the galaxy. Their home fleet was a thing of beauty. elegant ships that looked more like art than weapons, powered by technology that seemed like magic. But beauty and elegance meant nothing against human tactics. Alex's ships used electromagnetic pulse weapons to shut down Zephyrian systems, then closed in for the kill with kinetic weapons. The Zephyrian commanders, who had been trained to fight according to ancient rules of honor, found themselves facing an enemy that cared nothing for tradition. "Surrender now and your crews will be spared," Alex broadcast to the enemy fleet. "Continue fighting and we will show you why humans dominated their own planet through warfare." The Zephyrian admiral, a being called Silver Song of Stars, responded, with confusion and fear. "You fight without honor. These weapons are barbaric. This is not how civilized beings conduct war." "You're right," Alex replied. "This is how humans conduct war. Now you understand why we were the apex predators on our world." Within hours, the Zephyrian fleet was destroyed or captured. Their capital world, which had not seen violence for 10,000 years, burned as human soldiers secured key installations. The species that had thought themselves above such crude concerns as military power learned that all their philosophy meant nothing without the strength to defend it. The psychological impact of the human attack spread faster than the news of military defeats. For centuries, the galaxy had operated on the assumption that certain species were naturally superior to others. Humans had been placed at the bottom of this hierarchy, considered useful only for manual labor. Now, videos of human soldiers defeating elite alien warriors were spreading across the galactic network. The beings who had ruled through assumed superiority suddenly faced the terrifying possibility that they might not be superior at all. Dr. Nathan Cross's cyber warfare teams struck at the same time as the physical attacks. Across the galaxy, alien computer systems began failing. Defense networks crashed. Communication systems went offline. Banking and trade networks collapsed. Within hours, the technological civilization that had taken thousands of years to build was crippling itself as human viruses spread through every connected system. The aliens had created a galaxy-wide network that allowed instant communication and trade between worlds. They had never considered that this same network could be turned into a weapon against them. Human programmers working from captured alien data turned the galaxy's greatest achievement into its greatest weakness. On Earth, President Santos addressed not just her own people, but the entire galaxy. Her speech was broadcast on every functioning communication system, ensuring that every intelligent being in known space could hear her words. For 3 years, humanity tried to join your galactic community through peaceful means. We offered friendship, trade, and cooperation. Your response was to murder our ambassador and cover up the crime. You taught us that the galaxy respects only strength. Today, we show you our strength." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in across 1,000 worlds. "This war will continue until justice is served. Every species that supported the murder of Jake Morrison will face the consequences. Every government that refused to investigate his death will answer for their cowardice. The old galactic order is finished." General Hayes provided the military update that every species in the galaxy feared to hear. Human forces have achieved total victory in 7 star systems. Corvin Prime has fallen. The Zephyrian home fleet is destroyed. Kepler Station is under human control. We have captured or destroyed over 90% of the enemy's military assets in the opening phase of our offensive. But the most shocking news came from the intelligence division. Dr. Rachel Stone revealed the evidence that Dr. Elena Rodriguez had died trying to bring to light. We have proof that Ambassador Morrison was assassinated by Corvin agents using military-grade neurotoxin. We have the communication records showing how the Council covered up this crime. We have the names of every being who knew about the murder and chose to remain silent. The revelation sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Many species had suspected that Jake's death was suspicious, but none had dared to challenge the official story. Now they learned that their suspicions were correct, and that the most powerful beings in the galaxy were guilty of murder and conspiracy. Smaller species that had been oppressed by the Council began to celebrate in the streets. The Tau, Setians who had been denied representation for centuries, declared their support for humanity. The insectoid hive worlds, which had been treated as slave labor, began attacking Corvin installations in their systems. But not all species welcomed humanity's intervention. The Andromedan Collective, which had stayed neutral in galactic politics, began mobilizing their fleets. They saw the human attack as a threat to all established civilization and prepared to defend the old order. Admiral Walsh received reports of approaching Andromedan ships and smiled grimly. "Signal all fleet commanders," she ordered. "The enemy is bringing reinforcements. Show them the same hospitality we've shown everyone else." The battle for the galaxy was far from over, but the opening moves had made one thing clear. Humanity was no longer the weak, primitive species that could be ignored or insulted. They had shown the galaxy what happened when a species that had evolved through constant warfare decided to stop talking and start fighting. Jake Morrison had believed that words could solve any problem. His death had taught humanity that sometimes the only language others understand is violence. The galaxy had murdered their ambassador and expected them to accept it quietly. Instead, they had awakened a sleeping giant that would reshape the very foundations of galactic civilization. 6 months after Jake Morrison's death, the galaxy looked completely different. The war that had begun with humanity's surprise attack had spread to every corner of known space. Ancient alliances had crumbled. Proud civilizations had fallen. The old Galactic Council was nothing but a memory, and in its place rose something the galaxy had never seen before. President Maria Santos stood in the ruins of what had once been the council chamber on Kepler Station. Behind her, human engineers were rebuilding the space station according to new designs. The elegant alien architecture was being replaced with functional human construction. The message was clear: humanity was here to stay. "Citizens of the galaxy," President Santos began, her words broadcast to every inhabited world. "6 months ago, your leaders murdered our ambassador and thought they could hide their crime. Today, those same leaders stand trial for their actions, and their corrupt system has been swept away forever." The trials had been broadcast live across the galaxy. Overlord Thex and the other conspirators faced human justice for the assassination of Jake Morrison. The evidence was overwhelming, and the penalties were severe. Some aliens protested that humans had no right to judge other species, but their protests fell on deaf ears. The beings who had claimed superiority over humanity now discovered what it meant to be powerless. Admiral Kate Walsh, now promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Forces, provided a military update that sent shivers through alien governments across the galaxy. "Human fleets now control 47 star systems. We have established military bases in every major trade route. Any ship that threatens human interests will be destroyed without warning." The speed of humanity's victory had shocked even their own leaders. What was supposed to be a difficult war against superior alien technology had turned into a complete rout. The aliens' advanced weapons were useless against human tactics. Their sophisticated defenses crumbled before human determination. Their proud civilization surrendered rather than face total destruction. Captain Lisa Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, had become the face of human justice. Her capture of the Galactic Council had made her famous throughout the galaxy. She stood beside President Santos as the new order was announced. "My father believed that all intelligent species could live together in peace," Lisa said. "He was right, but he was naive about how to achieve that peace. The old council maintained order through fear and oppression. We will maintain order through strength and justice." The new government was called the Terran Alliance, and its principles were revolutionary. For the first time in galactic history, all species would be treated as equals. There would be no master races and no slave races. Disputes would be settled through negotiation backed by force, and any attack on a diplomatic envoy would be considered an act of war against all alliance members. Many alien species welcomed these changes. The smaller civilizations that had been oppressed under the old system finally had a voice in galactic affairs. The Tau Cetians were granted full membership, despite their primitive technology. The hive worlds were recognized as sovereign nations rather than sources of slave labor. Even artificial intelligences were given rights that had been denied to them for thousands of years. But the transition was not peaceful everywhere. Some species refused to accept human leadership and retreated into isolation. The Andromedan Collective closed their borders and declared that they would have no contact with the barbarian humans. The remaining Zephyrian worlds formed a defensive alliance and sworn to resist human influence. These holdouts discovered that isolation was no protection against human determination. Admiral Walsh's fleets surrounded resistant systems and cut off all trade and communication. Planets that had depended on galactic commerce for thousands of years suddenly found themselves alone and struggling to survive. "We tried diplomacy," Admiral Walsh explained to her officers. "We offered them a choice: join the alliance as equals or face the consequences of the old system's crimes. They chose to remain our enemies. Now they'll learn what that means." The siege tactics were brutally effective. Alien worlds that had never known hardship suddenly faced shortages of food, medicine, and technology. Their populations began to demand that their leaders make peace with humanity. Within months, most of the resistant systems were asking for terms of surrender. Dr. Nathan Cross, now head of the Alliance Science Division, worked to integrate alien technology with human engineering. The combination was producing innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. Human weapons became more powerful. Alien defenses became more practical. The galaxy was entering a new age of technological advancement, but perhaps the most important change was psychological. For thousands of years, alien species had believed in natural hierarchies based on age, wisdom, and technological advancement. Humans had shattered this belief system by proving that a young, supposedly primitive species could defeat ancient civilizations through superior tactics and determination. The impact on alien psychology was profound. Species that had ruled for millennia found themselves questioning their most basic assumptions about intelligence, civilization, and power. The proud Corvins, who had never lost a war, were forced to admit that their military traditions were obsolete. The spiritual Zephyrians discovered that their philosophy meant nothing without the strength to defend it. Commander Alex Turner, now head of Alliance Military Intelligence, studied the psychological profiles of defeated alien leaders. "They're experiencing what humans call culture shock," he reported. "Their entire worldview has been shattered. Some are adapting to the new reality, but others are retreating into denial and fantasy. This psychological damage was exactly what humanity had intended. They wanted the galaxy to understand that the old ways of thinking were dead. Species could no longer assume that age meant wisdom or that advanced technology guaranteed victory. The new galaxy would be shaped by human values: strength, determination, and the willingness to fight for what you believe in." The memorial to Jake Morrison was built on Earth's orbital station, visible to every ship that approached the homeworld. The inscription was simple but powerful. He believed in peace. His death taught us that peace must be defended. Carol Morrison, Jake's widow, spoke at the dedication ceremony. "My husband would be horrified by the war that followed his death. He believed that violence was never the answer, but perhaps he would understand that sometimes violence is the only language that evil beings understand." Lisa Morrison added her own words to the memorial. "My father tried to earn respect through patience and diplomacy. He failed because the galaxy was not ready for such noble ideals. But his sacrifice was not meaningless. The peace we have built is stronger because it rests on justice rather than oppression." The galaxy that emerged from the war was fundamentally different from what had come before. The old council had maintained order through ancient traditions and assumed superiority. The new alliance maintained order through demonstrated strength and clear principles. Trade resumed, but under human supervision. Diplomatic relations were re-established, but with human mediators. Scientific research continued, but with human oversight. The aliens had been given a choice: adapt to the new reality or be left behind by history. Most chose to adapt. The benefits of alliance membership were obvious. Human technology made alien defenses stronger. Human tactics made alien militaries more effective. Human principles made alien societies more just. The species that embraced change prospered, while those that clung to the old ways struggled and declined. The transformation was most visible in the younger generation of aliens. Children who had grown up hearing stories of human barbarism now learned about human achievements in school. They studied human history, learned human languages, and adopted human values. To them, the idea that one species was naturally superior to another seemed as outdated as the belief that their world was the center of the universe. But humanity had not forgotten the lessons of Jake Morrison's death. The Alliance military remained the most powerful force in the galaxy, ready to respond to any threat to the new order. Human bases were established in every major system, and human fleets patrolled every trade route. The message was clear. Peace was built on strength, and strength would maintain it. President Santos concluded her address to the galaxy with words that would be remembered for generations. "We did not seek this war. We tried to join your community through peaceful means, and you answered with treachery and murder. The old galaxy taught us that only strength is respected. The new galaxy will remember this lesson." She looked directly into the camera, speaking to every alien leader who might be watching. "We offer you partnership, trade, and mutual respect, but we also offer you this warning. Harm a human diplomat, threaten a human world, or challenge human authority, and you will discover why we were the apex predators on our planet. The choice, as always, is yours." The memorial to Jake Morrison stood as a symbol of both human loss and human resolve. The man who had believed in the power of words had been silenced by violence, but his death had given birth to something stronger than words. A galactic order built on justice and defended by the strongest military force the universe had ever seen.